Up until just a couple of years ago here on the channel, I was doing something fairly stupid. For some reason, I had this anxiety within myself that told me I couldn't research lore, deep dives on characters, things along those lines, while making content about them. Like, I earned this job, so I better memorize all of these books, otherwise I'm not worthy of having it. Yes, I was just going entirely off the dome. Why? Anxiety. Irrational, illogical anxiety. Fortunately, after therapies and getting properly medicated, I now do double check myself, especially when doing character deep dives, lore research, because you deserve accurate and up-to-date information, and the human memory is incredibly flawed, and that's without even my own memory issues on top of that. But like, why was that specific idea floating around my head? I've gotten a deluge of illogical comments here in the years of myself creating content that have criticized me for loads of reasons, but never has anyone said, like, you shouldn't be doing research, that would be insane. So like, what the hell? The answer, after really thinking about it for a long time, is just a complex manifestation of imposter syndrome I was dealing with. Something I bet more people than not can relate to. Contradictory as it seems, we as people, if you accomplish something or achieve a dream, often feel less secure about it after you have it. We're hardwired to feel stress, protect what we have, and in the soft and cushy modern day world we live in, there sometimes isn't a threat for us to latch onto, so we invent one. Now you must be asking at this point, what does any of this have to do with Wolfbrothers? Well, in my opinion, to truly understand what Robert Jordan was trying to accomplish with this quirk of his fantasy series, we need to look at the main character he built it for, Perrin Aybara. Don't worry, I will bend over backwards not to spoil anything past season 3 for Perrin and his arc in the series. I know it's been kind of piecemealed for the show, but I'm not going to be explicitly getting into his growth, trajectory, journey beyond what they've already covered or at least implied up to the end of season 3. Now, Perrin Aybara is a member of the Two Rivers triumvirate of boys. We have Rand, the Dragon Reborn, Matt Cawthon, the Scoundrel Gambler, and Perrin Aybara, Lord Goldeneyes. And despite him being the largest by mass of the three boys, he is also the most hesitant, instead of falling into the brute trope, being more of a gentle giant. Until he's not. We saw it in the Battle of the Two Rivers, but if the show does the character justice, Perrin entering this type of Wolfbrother fueled berserker rage will only become more prevalent as we continue through his story. Because there is an animal inside Perrin, one he fears, and that causes him an incredible amount of anxiety throughout the entirety of the Wheel of Time. And an identity crisis. Two side notes here that I just wanted to get out of the way because I couldn't smoothly weave them into this script. One, there are only male Wolfbrothers presented to us, the reader, throughout the Wheel of Time series, but Robert Jordan has explicitly said in Q&As online with fans that wolf sisters could theoretically exist. He just didn't write any. But the second thing I want to talk about here, we know Robert Jordan put a lot of himself into the main three Two Rivers boys. Here are some quotes that Robert Jordan gave in some interviews that I believe kind of reinforce what I'm saying, but again, this is my read. When asked, "Robert, do you see yourself as any of the characters?" he answered, "I see myself as whoever I happen to be writing at the moment. Other people have notions. They think I'm this character or that. I'm everybody." When asked, "Have you ever put your own personality in one of your characters? Or do you liken yourself to one of your characters?" Robert answered, "Well, I expect there's a bit of me in all of the male characters. My secretary thinks I'm Matt, my wife thinks I'm loyal. Other people have said they detect me in other characters, but I think it's just a bit of me in all the male characters. I'm not sure how I could have written them otherwise." And when asked, "Which character in the Wheel of Time do you most identify with?" Robert answered, "I always identified most with the characters from whose point of view I am trying to write at the moment. I try to get inside their heads, inside their skins. Sometimes this has disadvantages. I have gone into the house at the end of the day, and before I could even say a word, my wife has said to me, 'You were writing Pot on Fane today, weren't you?' Inevitably, when she says this, I have indeed been writing some character you would not like to be alone with. But if you mean which character do I think is most like me, well, Landman Dragoran expresses the ideals I was raised to aspire to, while Perrin is perhaps the most like me as a boy and a young man. On the other hand, my wife claims I'm a perfect loyal. To me, in my read of the material, and I want to be clear on that, it's my read, Rand and Perrin most transparently reflect the time Robert Jordan spent as a helicopter gunner in Vietnam. For example, when he was asked, "Have your experiences in Vietnam helped you give a psychological depth to the Wheel of Time series?" Robert Jordan answered, "I think they must have. I've certainly used some things from Vietnam. I know what it's like to have someone trying to kill me. Me in particular, not some random guy, me. I know what it's like to kill someone. I know how the first time feels, and how that is different from the 5th. Or the 10th. These things certainly went into the characters I've written. That wasn't deliberate. Who you are is constructed in large part from what you have experienced and how you reacted to those experiences. Whatever you write is filtered through who you are, so the influence has to be there." And when asked about his medals, Robert Jordan answered, "Everyone knows about one way of winning a medal. That's it, to see something which needs to be done, and to consciously do it at the risk of your life. I never did this. Relatively few people do, which is why we mark out those who do as heroes. But at other times, you can realize that you are going to die in a very few minutes, except that if you do something incredibly stupid, you might just have a small chance of living. And against all reason, it works. Or you take a step without thinking, and then it's too late to turn back. Maybe because turning back is just as dangerous as going on, or even more dangerous. Or maybe because you know that you will have to look in the shaving mirror, and that every time you do, you'll remember that you turned back, so you keep going. Or perhaps it's because you are with your friends, and you know you have to back their play, even if it's crazy, because they're your friends, because they've backed your play, even when it was crazy. I was with a group of men who had a certain air about them, and if you didn't have it when you joined them, you soon absorbed it. A plaque in our day room read, "Anybody can dance with the devil's daughter, but we tell her old man to his face." At a time like that, in a place like that, you're all too young and crazy, and if you've been there long enough, you know you're going to die. Not from old age, next month, next week, tomorrow, now. Maybe it's going to happen. So, what does it matter? In the end, for most of us, the medals boil down to managing not to die. If you're alive when the higher-ups think you should be dead, it discombobulates their brains. So they hang a bit of something on you to balance things in their own heads. That's how it happened for me. That is why I am not, I repeat, not a hero. I just managed to stay alive, and I even managed to get sane again. Reasonably sane, anyway. And while I'm sorry for the graphic nature of some of these quotes, in a story that I believe has some fairly clear parallels to Perrin, Robert Jordan said, "I had 2 nicknames in Nam. First was Ganesha, after the Hindu god, called the remover of obstacles. He's the one with the elephant head. That one stuck with me. But I gained another that I didn't like so much, the Iceman. One day, we had what the Aussies called a bit of a brass-up, just our ship alone, but we caught an NVA battalion crossing the river, and wonder of wonders, we got permission to fire before they finished. The gunner had a round explode in the chamber, jamming his 60, and the fool had left his barrel bag with spares back in the revetment, so while we frantically rummaged under the seat for my barrel bag, it was over to me. Young and crazy, standing on the skid, singing something by the Stones, at the top of my lungs, with the mic keyed so that the others could listen in, and Lord, I rode that 63,000 rounds, an empty ammo box, and the smoking barrel that I had burned out because I didn't want to take the time to change. We got ordered out right after I went dry, so the artillery could open up, and of course, the arty took credit for every body recovered, but we could count how many bodies were floating in the river when we pulled out. The next day in the orderly room, an officer with a literary bent announced my entrance with, "Behold, the Iceman cometh." For those unfamiliar with Eugene O'Neill, the Iceman was death. I hated that name, but I couldn't shake it. And to tell you the truth, by that time maybe it fit. I have, or used to have, a photo of a young man sitting on a log, eating sea rations with a pair of chopsticks. There are 3 dead NVAs laid out in a line just beside him. He didn't kill them. He didn't choose to sit there because of the bodies. It was just the most convenient place to sit. The bodies don't bother him. He doesn't care. They're just a part of the landscape. The young man is glancing at the camera, and you know, in one look, that you aren't going to take this guy home to meet your parents. Back in the world, you wouldn't want him in your neighborhood, because he's cold. I strangled that SUB, drove a stake through his heart, and buried him face down under a crossroads outside Saigon before coming home, because I knew that guy wasn't made to survive in a civilian environment. I think he's gone. All of him. I hope so. I much prefer him being remembered as Ganesha. the remover of obstacles. Now, I do feel the need, because this is the internet, to absolutely triple down and say that I am in no way, shape, or form trying to speculate on Robert Jordan's mental condition before, during, or after his time in the service. That would be gross to do, and it is not my place as a fan of his series. Though, I would say that being a young man taken from his home and thrust into a literal army of young men in a rather traumatic circumstance, it's safe to assume he was likely exposed to a lot of people who struggled with the sides they saw of themselves in combat, war. That seems like something that likely did inform a lot of the psychological details we see within soldiers, leaders in the Wheel of Time, even well beyond Perrin. You can tell Robert Jordan understands this stuff firsthand, especially when you look at the metaphor of the hammer and the axe, or Perrin and the Wolfbrother. This balancing act is shown to us rather quickly during the Battle of the Two Rivers, where you actually see Perrin pick up both a hammer and an axe and begin dual wielding them. This is foreshadowing a lot of what is to come for Perrin. Within the books, those two objects are reflective of the two warring minds living inside Golden Eyes. The simple blacksmith who would be happy to settle down with his wife, and the warrior, the one who feels the thrill of the hunt when he runs with the wolves. All right, I'm sorry, one more side note. I think in season 1, they were trying to rush set up this internal turmoil within Perrin by having him accidentally kill a wife who did not exist in the books in some kind of rage. But at this point in the books, he is not connecting with the wolves, and it's not shown that he is in the show either. So it feels remarkably out of place and mishandled. And in season 3, we kind of just see him literally put this whole conflict with his dead wife to rest. So yeah, I was charitable that, hoping it would kind of end up building into the wider Wolfbrother conflict, but we're seeing it kind of just spring up independent of that, so yeah. That might be one of the worst changes they made from the books yet. If you haven't noticed, I'm also kind of setting up this video to be more including of my own opinions. You can just go read the Wolfbrother wiki and get a very quick rundown of what they are. I would like to try and, at least from my perspective, provide you a deeper insight into what Robert Jordan was trying to communicate through this power, what it represented as material, and how Perrin Aybara became the vessel for that to be achieved. So bear with me, feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below. Let's just keep it constructive and polite. Please?
That's not going to happen.
But boiling everything I've said down, the concept of being a Wolfbrother is, I believe, fairly clearly representative of how we as people have two inside of us. Call it the id, ego, superego dynamic, the conscious and subconscious, the animal and the man, whatever floats your boat. But from many different beliefs and fields of study, it is widely discussed that we all deal with multiple minds. When you add in a traumatic life, that split can become all the harder to reconcile. This is the great conflict of Perrin Aybara, and by extension, being a Wolfbrother. Now, he's not the only Wolfbrother. I'm just saying that it's clearly he, as a character from Robert Jordan, was chosen deliberately to have this power because of, you know, authorial intent. It's kind of strange to talk about, like, as a fan, why authors make certain decisions they make. It's, you know, your interpretation, but that's why I think discussion is useful. But I don't want to just boil this down to like some violent warrior-fueled rage. The Wolfbrother dynamic is far more complex, and we as people have long romanticized a return to nature, whether it's books like Call to the Wild, or even like the entire concept of the rough riding cowboy who's able to make it out on his own, separate from society. Realistic or not, we often yearn to return to the hunt, sleep under the stars, and throw away the weights of society. If we actually did that, there probably wouldn't be toilet paper, so I think most of us end up not.
But it's a fantasy.
It's this shared psyche that becomes central to Robert Jordan's concept of a Wolfbrother. And those with this ability throughout the series actually have this primal urge within themselves amplified and given an actual voice. Literally in the books, Perrin is able to communicate with wolves through scents, images, and feral feelings. And importantly, this is a complex means of communication that is not presented as like dumbed down compared to the elegant words we used, just different. And which of course speaks to why Robert Jordan chose the wolf as well to be a representative to this conflict within us. It's a creature that's often seen as wise and mysterious, as well as related to man's best friend.
Who's a good boy?
But importantly, Robert Jordan never brings in like any of the alpha wolf bullshit that's been disproven. That's not really a thing, and no, this isn't about like masculinity and being alpha.
Now, I want you to kick me. Come on, kick me. Okay, do it again. Do it again.
Perrin and Wolfbrothers at large are not depicted as somehow dominant over the wolves, despite him often relaying information to them, and yes, they will help according to their own free will. He has a relationship with this part of him, and by extension, the wolves, that grows as his character develops. And we, the reader, through Perrin, come to understand an actual kind of like different culture among the wolves as well. They are confused by the constraints of human society. They don't really get it. I don't blame them. It's weird, and the freedom they're able to offer Perrin in abandoning his life away and joining their wild hunt is genuinely tempting. Like, you as the reader, through Perrin's eyes, understand this temptation. And temptation is a huge theme that Robert Jordan plays with in all of his magic systems, from the addictive nature of the one power to how Tel'aran'rhiod can just offer you so much, and the ability to invade others' privacy and minds. And yes, the Wolfbrother can actually consume you. And this takes me to a crucial developmental scene for Perrin in the series, where he comes across a man named Gnome, who's gone too far and given himself completely to the wolf within. He can no longer speak, and he's even bitten people. His loved ones are keeping him in a cage because there's really nothing better they can do for him. And Perrin, in a very important moment in the story, lets this man go free. But it instills a very rational fear in him. You cannot fully embrace the Wolfbrother within. We're not meant to. Yet there is, of course, a reassurance that this isn't an inevitability. Earlier than we encounter this scene in the book, and actually in the show, Perrin Aybara meets Elyas, who seems to have struck a very comfortable balance for himself. It's not right for everybody, but it shows this is something that can be conquered, maybe, that's a way to put it, but I would just say more it's a balance to be achieved. And I want to reiterate, this is a deeply spiritual journey for Perrin that we follow throughout all 14 books he appears in, which actually results in him being, in my opinion, probably the most difficult character from the Wheel of Time to bring to the screen, because spiritual journeys are often incredibly internal, and I'd be willing to bet money Perrin, more than any other character in all of the Wheel of Time, has the most internal dialogue. This guy thinks, ponders, pontificates to us, the reader, so much that, yeah, he kind of comes across shy and quiet to others in the series. But we, the reader, because we're able to be in his mind, know he's actually one of the most noisy in some ways. But what's causing so much strife inside is that balance represented by the hammer and the axe, the man, the smith, and the warrior, the wolf. This spiritual angle is also manifested in the Wolfbrothers' ability to access the dream world. Yes, Wolfbrothers can enter Tel'aran'rhiod, which is why I wanted Perrin to actually notice Egwene in this scene, maybe even a small flicker. It would have been a small thing that I think could have done a lot for the viewer in terms of setting up the potential power of Wolfbrothers. Seeing Egwene kind of start as Perrin catches her literally intruding on his dream, resulting in her fleeing, not only because she is not supposed to be doing this in the first place, but she's just been caught breaking into someone's dreams. Sorry, that was a tangent. I need to get back on what we're talking about.
Stay on target.
Tel'aran'rhiod is, within the Wheel of Time, in my read of it, a manifestation of our deeper subconscious desires. That's what it's built to be. Even the power you can wield within Tel'aran'rhiod is dependent on your own ability to control your thoughts, and by extension, your will. What's fascinating about the development of the dream world in this way is we as the reader get to see two completely different methods to coming to master the dream world through Perrin and Egwene. One is led by wise ones who as humans believe they have mastered the dream world. And then there is Perrin, who we see come to a much, I would call it, deeper understanding of Tel'aran'rhiod, while not having a lot of the constraints it seems the human mind in studying it has put there, but that would require spoilers for me to get into, so I'm not going to do that. But just know that Perrin in his own way is tutored in the dream world, and it's dangerous. And you might ask, wait, Perrin's tutored in the dream world? Yes. Tel'aran'rhiod, in some sense, is the afterlife to wolves. It's why we see wise ones mention actually seeing them within the dream world. They also can enter the dream world in their sleep, further bringing that seeing them as a spiritual, extension of mankind into the page. But when Perrin first enters this wolf dream, as he calls it, he's continually warned of how dangerous it is. And we know that to be true. Within the dream, Perrin does lose himself to being a wolf, just running wild in the hunt, entering a realm that blurs the line between self and spirit. And if you're not careful, you can lose yourself. Now, if you're not a book reader and you've gotten to this point in the video, you might be wondering, where the hell is any of this in the show? Which was kind of my problem with the Two Rivers plotline in season 3. A lot of this is communicated to the reader during that time, but I also understand with the 8-episode constraints, this season was already at a breakneck pace, and it seems to me they decided to move a lot of this to season 4. I agree with that fan theory about what is to come for Perrin, so I'm reserving judgment. I just would have really liked to see it here. I understand not, though. But let's get into some of the more specific powers that come with being a wolfkin, the apparent official canon term for like a gender-neutral, both men and women Wolfbrother. I actually didn't know that until I did my research on this video. Now, this ability is apparently actually older than the one power, which makes us confirm no, it is completely unrelated to it, just like how Tel'aran'rhiod is not dependent on someone's ability to channel. Robert Jordan liked his magic systems to be separate, touch, but never connect and depend. Instead, Wolfbrother's ship is kind of presented as something that maybe had always been within humankind and rises and falls depending on what age we're in and what's going on with humanity. And when asked about like where his inspirations for creating the Wolfbrothers came from, I feel Robert Jordan kind of gave a very honest, just broad answer of like, there is, if you squint at Wolfbrothers, kind of a version of it in a load of different cultures, mythologies, and even just fiction. Which means because we are in the past of the Wheel of Time, Wolfbrothers and sisters could be among us right now. They're called furries. Now, as I mentioned, it is revealed to us, the reader, that wolves are far smarter than we currently in the here and now perceive them to be. They are aware of the Dark One and even the coming last battle, or as they call it, the final hunt. I shouldn't howl, that was cringy. And being a Wolfbrother comes with a litany of additional powers beyond communicating telepathically with wolves and entering the dream world, like having a stronger sense of smell, sight, potentially strength, and possibly dreaming in the terms of Wheel of Time, meaning like the ability to see the future vaguely through dreams, though I'm not sure, and the wiki isn't either, if this is dependent on being a Wolfbrother or just happens to be something that Perrin can also do. Now, we couldn't talk about Wolfbrothers without getting into their wolves. This is equally as an important part of the discussion for Wolfbrothers as the brothers themselves. Because as I have hinted at repeatedly, there is a genuine culture among the wolves. Surprise! Robert Jordan liked developing cultures, and he's not going to miss out on the opportunity to do it for some animals. And we see within the conventions that exist with wolves, they have a naming one where they have like hopes, dreams, or characteristics that result in what they are called. But remember, in their communication, it's not a word, it's a almost story, because like we meet Hopper in the show, who already has a much more substantial role in the books, and his actual name is about his desire to fly and jumping after like birds and other insects, because that is what brings him joy. Doesn't your heart immediately melt? Hopper is best boy. But this isn't to imply there's some kind of like actual connection and like bonding, as you would see in like his Dark Materials, between Pan and Lyra that exists between Hopper and Perrin. But there is a bond, a rather important one, that becomes fundamental to the development of Perrin. I'm not going to say Hopper changes too much of a character. In a strange way, he's almost like the Obi-Wan to Perrin. It's not his job to learn and change. It's his job to bring Perrin up to speed. But even outside of this personal dynamic where, no, they are not soul bonded, yet they seem to be very important to each other, the wolves as a whole have a similar level of relationship to the destiny of the pattern, the path of the light. Everyone fights the shadow, and we see, even during battles within the series, the wolves can go to war. They will fight, yes, alongside soldiers, as long as the soldiers don't turn on them, and even hip to hip with Wolfbrothers. Their packs can be relatively small too, in the thousands, as they begin to come together and organize for the coming hunt. They're willing to actually group up and come together, and that's the level of sophistication we're dealing with here. But it never elevates to like a, I would call, society. They don't build anything. They are still absolutely wolves. And Robert Jordan took great care to kind of put that on equal footing. It allowed him to craft this beautiful, unique feeling to his wolves, where they are, without question, the things in the night that would scare the hell out of you, and they still do that to people who don't know better in these books. But they're also elevated, and so it makes sense that someone like Perrin can kind of get a best friend in a wolf, someone who becomes not necessarily a father figure to him, but a fraternal one. Hence why there's some not like adolescent age where that's when Wolfbrothers become discovered, and instead we see Perrin starts talking to wolves around 19, and Elyas I think was in his 30s. It seems to emerge just in turbulent or important times in a man's life. But when it comes to Wolfbrothers, that's kind of it. Robert Jordan left them intentionally a bit vague. He didn't want it to be this hard magic system where you can spell it out and see the answers. It's about the mystery, the mystique, that makes it feel so special. And again, adds a whole new dimension to what feels possible in the reality of the pattern. Just another deep dive worthy angle to Robert Jordan's magic systems that showcase so clearly why we love this world as fans. Now that's pretty much all I can say about Wolfbrothers without getting into major spoilers for Perrin's potential arc with his anxiety and his identity crisis and how he comes to reconcile this conflict that I feel is in a lot of us. We have a demon, a primal animal, something that boils under the surface, the id. Phineas Gage is the one who unlocked it first. And Wolfbrothers, in my opinion, were clearly one of Robert Jordan's favorite elements of his world to explore, and for good reason. They have remarkably broad inherent symbolism to people in general, and he was able to put so much into the character of Perrin through his delicate balance of man and his more brutal nature. The fire in our blood and the conflict hesitation that can begin to burn as a result. But it's not until Perrin is able to conquer his self-doubt, anxieties, and right to lead his people that he is able to then reconcile these parts of himself and realize they are both one, that he can truly become Lord Goldeneyes. That's as vague as I can possibly be, but spoiler alert, this character has an arc and a point. Shocking, I know, if you've never read something. We all have a beast within us, and that's kind of scary. Let me know what you think of this style of lore deep dive, where I put some more of like background information in there, as well as a lot of my own read and opinion that, again, I welcome people to disagree with, and I try to differentiate between the two. And let me know what your favorite magic system is within the Wheel of Time, and what element from Wheel of Time, Mistborn, any other fantasy series I've covered here on the channel you'd like to see explored in a similar video. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Check out my bookshelf roast that YouTube apparently didn't feel the need to push to a lot of my subscribers, and get the TBR merch if you'd like that design. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.